Okay, so I just clicked live on YouTube.
Okay. All right. Hello, everyone. Okay, go. Okay, I see we're on YouTube there. Well, welcome everyone. Thank you for being here today. Sorry for my computer problems there. We'll jump right in and go ahead and get a couple items of business taken care of before we get to the ordinance update review. Has everyone had a chance to look at the minutes from last meeting in January? If so, are there any changes, addition, corrections? If none, could I entertain a motion to accept the minutes?
So moved.
Okay.
A second.
And a second. Okay. And Amanda, I believe we need a roll call for this.
Dawn, you have to speak, Dawn.
I'm so sorry. I'm
That's
here.
okay.
I'm here, present.
Okay, yes, okay. Russ,
Yes.
Rose,
Yes.
Alan,
Yes.
Okay. And it was a yes from me there as well. Okay. And the next item of business we have is to elect a vice chair. Ellen Hunter was our vice chair, and she has left the board after many years of service. I'd like to just ask if we have anyone interested in the position of vice chair, just to back up in case the chair can't be here. Russ, Dom, anyone? Alan?
I mean, I'll do it if nobody else will do it. If Russ wants to do it or Rose wants to do it, I'd be happy to let them do it.
Gonna
Like to
graciously
nominate
throw-
Alan?
I was going to throw somebody else under the bus, Alan. So I think I was not volunteering. So do I need to make a motion for Alan?
Thanks. The new guy, huh?
Okay, if you would nominate Alan, if that's your desire.
I'll nominate Alan.
Okay.
I'll second that nomination,
Okay.
if that's what you need.
Okay. And is there any other nomination?
Or you're not going to take like a 6 month absent, are you? Like you're going to take you're going to nominate me, elect me, and then boys are like, I'm going on a 6 month vacation. So
Actually, I'm doing this meeting from Florida today, so if no other nominations, then
How long are the terms?
for life.
Oh,
No,
I think they're 3 years, but
3 years is, I believe, is correct. Yeah. Okay. If no other nominations, have a motion nominations be closed.
sure. I'll move nominations be closed.
Okay. And do we have a second on that?
A second.
Okay. Okay. So do we need to vote on that, Amanda? Just to, okay.
you have to vote on the vice chair. Yes.
Okay.
So Dawn,
Yes.
Russ,
Yes.
Boyd,
Yes.
Rose,
Yes.
Alan,
yes.
Melissa,
Yes.
Okay. Congratulations, Alan. Okay. That's really all of the business we have to take care of today. So we will move on to the zoning ordinance update. And spoke with Paige earlier just to get a little bit of background so everyone's kind of up to date with what's going on here. And the ordinance update or the rewrite of it is just the follow-up recommendation from the ordinance assessment and land use plan that we went through in 2018, 2019. And the ordinance update will include the required legislative changes to the planning statutes. The legislature is requiring that towns update their zoning ordinances by July 1st. So that's really the impetus behind getting this done. Withers Ravenel is the firm the town hired to update our zoning ordinance for us. And the goal is to rewrite the zoning and subdivision ordinance, including the 160D amendments and recommendations from the ordinance assessment. The town wants a revised ordinance. It's easier to understand. If you look through the current one we have, can be very confusing. But easily understood by the community and provides clear guidance and is consistent and with any of the state statutes. So that's just a little background on what we're doing here. So at this time, I'll turn it over to is it Meredith or okay.
Thank you, Boyd. Hi, everyone. I'm Meredith Gruber. I'm with Withers Ravenel. I'm the Director of Planning for their public sector work. So working with communities and doing projects like this is what I enjoy doing. So I'm happy to be here this evening. I'm going to share my screen. I have a PowerPoint presentation I'd like to take you through. And I'm very casual with it. Please interrupt me have questions or comments. That is perfectly fine. And then we'll also have time at the end for questions and discussion. Does everyone see the Town of Sylva Ordinance Rewrite intro slide? Okay, great, wonderful. So last time I saw you all was at your January meeting. And again, I'm happy to be back again. So I'm going to let you know what we've been doing for the past 2 months and then what we have ahead of us. So goals of the project include making the 160D updates that Boyd mentioned, reformatting the ordinance, and accommodating all the recommendations in your ordinance assessment. The 160D items, our team has gotten a first draft of all the 160D required edits completed, and we will continue to verify everything looks good and is working well throughout the process, but that is something we have done. And we are in the midst of reformatting. We've gotten most of the ordinance reformatted. All the articles are laid out as per your assessment document. And we are working on the recommendations in the assessment. And we'll work directly with the document. And we will, as I mentioned, we'll continue to make sure everything with 160D is where it should be. Moving forward, we're going to continue working with Sylva staff. And we'd like to talk a little bit today about the use table and function. Want to make sure it's easy to look at. And in the future, we'll be looking more at the NC 107 road widening project that we discussed in January and thinking about how we can accommodate future development in that corridor and picking the right zoning requirements for that. So Amanda sent you last week 2 different use table examples, as well as some text, ordinance text. And option 1 was modeled after Cornelius's ordinance. That's a pretty typical thing to do when working on an ordinance, is to look at other communities who you think have a decent ordinance and pull pieces and parts from other communities and then personalize them for yourself, because usually you can find something you like. So maybe you've seen something in a community before and you might want to look up what their requirements are and see how they compare to your community. It can be a fun activity. And then option 2 follows your current ordinance more so. And let's take a look at option 2 first. So this is a section of the option 2 use table. And if you take a look on the right, it's not super important to read all the uses. What's important to notice here are all of the Ps. There are a lot of Ps, and P means permitted use. And in this case, going from residential to the left to industrial on the right, that's the most restrictive or the least amount of uses on the left, and the most or least restrictive and most intense uses on the right. So with this use table in like residential 1, there are just a few things that are allowed, like single family homes. As you move to the right, you can see all the additional Ps or SUPs. SUP means special use permit. And that's a quasi-judicial process to go through to have that use allowed. You have to make sure you're meeting certain standards, and it's an evidentiary-based hearing. I'm sure you've observed some of that before. So again, with all the Ps you see, that's showing like an industrial, all the uses are allowed, like everything's there plus the items in the previous districts. So is it really what we want to have single family residential in an industrial district? Probably not. This was sort of a more traditional way to do zoning before, and now it's more on trend and appears to be more effective to be more specific with uses in different districts. So that's what's going on with this. So I wanted you to see all the Ps and all the different uses that keep getting added on in the later districts on this use table. So in this use table, this is modeled more after Cornelius and some other similar communities. You can see that uses are more specific to the district. For example, commercial, retail, and service use of a smaller size is permitted in business 1, 2, and 3, and you don't see that use in other locations. So just looking at this, I think it's less intimidating and less overwhelming because you see fewer options for a use. So hopefully that is a good thing. And any comments or thoughts on that so far?
Yes, Meredith. John Jeleneski, I'm the zoning administrator with the town, and
Hi, John.
boots on the ground out in the field.
Yes.
With all the ordinances that we deal with across the county, we have 3 county zone jurisdictions, and then we also are contracted with the other 3 municipalities in the county to do their planning and zoning as well. The thing that I find about Sylva's ordinance specifically is the lack of prohibited uses, and we have to spell that out. And for the board to understand that it's important because of case law to actually identify what is prohibited in each district, because if it's not prohibited specifically, you have to kind of back in a use that is, and Meredith, jump in if I'm saying this wrong, you have to kind of back in what the requested use would be in a district if it is relative or is close to another current use that is happening. Also in the table of our existing districts, B2 and B3 are the same district. And so in order to maybe either make it one district or to separate them to have prohibited uses in the B2 that are allowed in B3 or something along those lines, I think the board and the town probably need to look a little bit deeper into that. And I agree, I think and on this table that's on the screen, moving from the left to the right, industrial should be pretty much narrowed down to what the manufacturing, industrial, and so forth. And that district is very small in the town. So it's not like you would be, you're only talking about maybe a handful of properties, a few properties that would be involved with that. And that current use for those properties is industrial. So it's not like that would change long term. But I think the big thing is definitely to identify that. I think this use table, the way I'm seeing this, is going to grow. And it's going to show not only more uses that are kind of listed, and using, I guess, the template that you have, but what we're used to seeing, I think, which is a little more, it spells it out a little bit better, is, and I guess it's more of a placeholder situation. Some of the ordinances that we're dealing with at the county level for those in districts, if it is prohibited, it would have an N instead of a dash. And I guess, again, it's a placeholder, maybe it's identified in a legend, but so you'd have P for permitted, N for no, SUP for special use permit, and then you may have a use that is permitted in the district with special standards, not a special use permit, but if you have something that requires additional setbacks or something like that, you would spell that out in special standards. And I think that is helpful as well.
Definitely, thank you. Yeah, with the special standards or supplemental standards, they're a great tool to go along with the use. Let's say, I like to use the example of a kennel or dog kennel. It could be its own use, or it could be an accessory to a veterinarian. And typically you don't want a kennel with an outdoor dog run adjacent to a residential district or within a certain number of feet of somewhere where it could cause disturbance. So sure, a kennel is allowed, but not with the outdoor dog run in this type of situation. So that way, get a use in and have it fit better into the community with those special or supplemental standards. Any other thoughts on the uses or the use table right now?
So Meredith, is my sound working?
Yes, you sound great.
Okay. Accessory use, basically meaning it's not standalone, but can be along with something else, kind of like your kennel explanation.
Yes, I'm sorry, I'm having screen difficulties. I hit the wrong button. Yes, accessory use, it's a companion use where it's allowed as long as it's part of something else, not a standalone. Yes. Okay. I'll go through. So go
I
ahead.
had one other question there.
Please.
As far as the categories themselves, are you using the ones that are currently in Sylva's ordinance and moving them over to this other format, or just actually changing the categories?
Some combination of all of that. We're pulling everything over and seeing if there are opportunities to consolidate. For example, depending on, I think a retail shop is a good one. You don't need to list like antique store and pawn shop and a resale shop. You could just have it be like a retail category piece, because those similar types of stores don't need to be called out individually. So we'll be working through that. It's nice to make it as short as possible, but still meet the needs of the community, depending on what businesses are popular or what businesses may have issues that need to be called out individually. We can certainly keep talking about uses. I just wanted to share the timeline from before. So we're here tonight giving you an update. And if it's all right with you all, I would like to come back again to your April meeting and give you an additional update. A lot of the work we've done to date, we were saying it's less glamorous, like the 160D work and the reformatting. Like I said, not super glamorous. We're getting into the more fun pieces and parts, like the uses and the development standards. I think those are the kinds of things that you would want to talk about with us. So hopefully I will be invited back in April to keep talking with you. And now it's open for discussion. I can put the use table back up, or I'm happy to pull up a full use table to know what you all want to get into. I will stop sharing for a moment so I can see everyone's faces.
So the option one would be the one that's updated would be the new one we use. And it really kind of, like John was saying, just narrows the field so much to where you can't put agriculture or industrial into the R1s, you know, through the R2s there. And then the other ones, unless there's like special use permits and stuff like that, kind of narrows that down or reclassifies it.
Right, it's more specific. Residential districts are residential. The business districts, like, you know, I know we said B2 and B3 are the same right now. You know, that can be
Right.
one district, and that's sort of like the highway
Okay.
business. You might have like the professional business district, and then institutional.
Okay.
Meredith, are the new category names, are those, I guess, specific to 160D updates, or are those, I'm trying to line up the old ones and the new ones and figure out where.
Talking about the zoning district names?
It looked to be in alphabetical order, and then the existing ones were, and I'm not sure what kind of order. But just for example, I'm just trying to find some of them. Like I see, like where did churches go in the new one?
I will have to take a look at that. It could be under places of worship, or it could have a different name.
Okay, so is option two was modeled after the Cornelius one, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Or
So-
option, maybe it was option one.
Option
I'm
one.
gonna pull option one.
Yeah.
I know it's confusing.
Option
Option one should have been Sylva, and then the other one should have been the other.
So in the table, option one would be the new one we're looking at. Option two right now is what we're currently existing under, is option two.
Yes.
That's right, Meredith?
Yes,
Okay.
thank you.
Okay. So I think Rose's question was like, where does single family fall in the option one? Or where does, like she said, churches? Would that be under civic? I guess it's kind of, the names have just gotten a little different.
Sure. And I am.
Yeah, there's dwellings, and then there's residential.
So dwelling, single family would be, okay, I got it.
Would you like me, I can share my screen again and show just the use table, and we can take a look at that if that is all right. Okay, does that show up for everybody? Okay, and I'm looking, so we're talking about dwelling. That's the housing piece. And I am looking for church. And just as another example or option, there are just another discussion point. There are different ways to organize the use categories. Sometimes you want to start with residential uses at the top and sort of mimic the order of the zoning districts. This obviously is an alphabetical order. That is certainly a viable option, but they could also be in alphabetical order based on residential, commercial, institutional, etc. I don't know if there's a preference or a thought there, because obviously I'm having trouble finding church.
I'm not seeing that either.
Me
And
either.
it may not.
Maybe it's civic.
Or maybe if we took like the old table and put a column like what it was changed to, so that we
Okay.
could line up like if
Okay, that's a great suggestion.
if we could see what the new category is, because it doesn't really look like there's fewer. It seemed to be a similar number of uses.
And this is something we are definitely still working on. We just thought this would be something worthwhile to go ahead and talk about, see if there are any preferences, thoughts, ideas, or questions about how to make a good use table function.
I had to educate myself on all of this because I'm a high school English teacher. And so I watched the North Carolina School of Government's YouTube on 160D.
Mhm.
And my understanding of it is that it is a combination of county and town uses so that there isn't so much overlap and that it's more streamlined. Is that essentially correct?
Definitely more streamlined with terminology and just it depends on the municipality as far as the overlap of the town and county uses.
Okay, well then I would continue that with since I'm a complete layperson. When I look at this, I think about the fact that most of the people who look at this are going to be in positions like yours or going to be in positions like Rose's, and you're going to have this familiarity with it. And for somebody who comes in who just wants to do something in the town and they want to find out if it's permissible and they can't find it on here, then I think that's where, you know, our coming up with nomenclature would be important.
Okay.
So it seems like the simpler the better. So alphabetical seems like the simplest thing to me.
Okay.
Thank you.
Great feedback.
Is there does the state have a suggested category list or anything like that?
Not to my knowledge. I don't know, John, if you've seen anything like that. I have not seen that.
No, I'm not either.
Okay. I think I found that it's been best to tailor it to the community. It seems like everyone has some kind of interesting use issue going on these days. Issue or desire.
Yes, I agree. I think it was Rose that said that it would be good if we could take all of the existing current categories and make sure that they are covered
Sure.
in a easy to find location on the
Okay.
new one.
I'm happy to bring back next month a table of existing and proposed and what's different so we can more easily figure that out.
Meredith, is food trucks, what is food trucks under on this?
Would think. We might want to add that in. Unless it's not a rest. I mean, it's a restaurant, but it doesn't fit brew pub, non-drive-through or drive-through. I would consider it its own category and then food trucks typically have very specific supplemental standards. Recently, I've seen supplemental standards for food trucks that would say things like food trucks may not be parked within 100 feet of another restaurant front entrance, something like that, or food trucks may not block sidewalks, other circulation routes, etc. Things like that are useful.
Yeah, we worked pretty hard on those food truck ordinances, so you got to include that.
Oh, certainly. You all have, do you get a lot of food trucks in downtown?
No.
No?
We were trying to be proactive.
Okay.
Yeah.
They seem to be becoming more and more popular.
Definitely.
Just out of curiosity, would it be possible the current list here to sort it alphabetically so it makes it easier to compare
Sure.
side to side?
I have PDFs right now. When I come back, I can use the Excel file and sort it that way. Or if you'd like, I'm happy to follow up and resend what we did in alphabetical order if that's of use to you all.
Yeah, if you could just resend it and Paige
Okay.
can forward or Amanda can forward it to us just
Okay.
to have for perusal.
Okay.
But our main thing right now is kind of form, right? Is that what we're not really digging in on every use as much as we are, do we like this direction? Is that?
I think both are important to discuss and share preferences on. Even with aspirations of having a form-based code, it's difficult to get away from the Euclidean zoning and use categories we found. But having design standards that respect both, that hybrid approach seemed to work well.
Amanda and I were talking today, and we like the idea of the restructured ordinance where you have all the regulations together, and then you look at the table and see if that use is allowed. And what districts it's allowed in. I think that would make it easier for businesses opening and also people doing additions or something on their home.
Totally agree. It's if you can limit the spots where you have to look something up, it just makes life better.
So one question I have on churches. Okay, our B1 district doesn't allow churches on the first floor unless they have their own parking lot.
Okay.
So what would that P, or how would that look like when it was permitted in this table?
I would put it as a PS, permitted with supplemental standards. So
Okay.
if that use is okay, or if it's something you're concerned about, make it a special use permit. And then there's a little more red tape to go through if you want to make it difficult for certain uses. But if you're okay, if the church has its own parking lot, that becomes a supplemental standard. So it would not be allowed unless it met those standards. Any other uses that are tricky or have specific questions or needs attached with them?
One question I have with bars is, so that's got on the option 1 table, and it's accessory in the B1, B2, B3, and professional business. Why would that be accessory?
A bar could be an accessory to like a tap room or a brewery or a restaurant. Some cases, actually, I think it needs to be both a standalone use and an accessory use. So we'll need to take a look at that.
Okay. Our current ordinance doesn't allow them in the B1 district, but we have a lot because of private clubs, breweries. So I don't know that it needs to be as restrictive as it currently is.
Okay. So for your community, is the bar brewery type use something that's desirable?
We have a lot of them.
Okay. You want more?
Is there B1? Is B1 downtown district?
Yes.
Okay, so that's why all those ones downstairs are breweries and stuff like that, or the private club that you go, because I'm okay. I didn't quite B1, B2. Yeah, I think that's a little too restrictive in that instance of that area.
Okay.
Of our downtown district.
I mean, it fits the downtown better than it does the residential areas.
Oh, certainly.
Yes.
Them allow that.
Yes. Right. Yeah. It is appropriate for zoning and appropriate for that area. Yeah.
Okay, and then dwelling for single family. Our current one allows it in our business districts. I don't know that that's the highest and the best use of that property. I mean, pretty much the property values would limit that.
Good
But
point.
it's sort of the way our corridor is just developed, but things will turn over eventually.
Makes sense. You're going to have less conflict between a residence right next to a business and things like that.
Back to the organization of the table, I do on one level like the alphabetical, but I'm getting hung up on dwelling and residential being so far apart, you might not see them both. And then you've got bar on one side and tap room on the other, and you might not know to keep looking. I wonder if there could be a combination of alphabetical and then subcategories or something, so that those are in the same area.
In our other ordinances that we're dealing with, it does break it down into categories of residential, commercial, industrial, professional, that kind of thing. And in those categories, there's subcategories that are alphabetical. So in residential, you would have everything under the sun that would be residential. You would have, single family detached homes all the way to multifamily, and everything that is stacked there, manufactured housing, modular homes, those types of things. And within that residential, the accessory buildings that would be allowed, barns, sheds, etc., and accessory apartments for single family residential properties, because we have that now. So those things would be all categorized in residential, and you do the same thing for commercial, anything, same thing with professional type, and you do that. And that, in terms of breaking it down into categories and subs, seems to flow a little better with what we see day to day where I'm sitting. I get the idea of folks picking up that document for the first time, and it's just, looking at it like it's a dictionary, but it does get confusing even doing that, because you're still bouncing around from use to use to find that.
Would it be possible to actually have the table in there twice? One maybe purely alphabetical and the other one more organized, as John mentioned?
Yeah, absolutely. Can always have one in the article and then have a list of all the uses in alphabetical order in an appendix. That way you can have whichever one you want. And also done different land use appendices for ordinances that do list everything out multiple ways, so you can dig through that. So it's not taking up all the space in the article, but you can still have it as a reference if that's something of interest. So I thought it was neat to hear what I think it was Dawn had to say, just coming at it from a different viewpoint. Because in my brain, but I'm a planner, I'm used to looking at it a certain way, but I can see how if you're not used to looking at it that way, that you would want the option of seeing everything in alphabetical order. Any other thoughts?
What about golf courses? Like, I can't see a scenario where we have the property to ever have a golf course, but I would hate to see our limited residential ever go to being a golf course. Like, is there, like I said, I don't know if this is an issue in Sylva. We're so landlocked, I can't imagine, but we do have a housing issue, and I would hate if somebody bought up a big chunk of residential land and put it in a golf course.
Let's see. Well, if that's something you think we need to be aware of, if we have golf course or sporting uses, park type uses, whether it's a public park or a private recreational park type area, which golf course kind of fits into, we can limit the districts that the private recreational uses are in to keep something like that from happening. Like, you would want a public park probably in most zoning districts, or you would want it to be able to be wherever that parkland happens to be. But again, when it's private, you want to have a little more control.
One thing to be careful about with that, Russ, is that we can't prohibit legal uses. You just can't take a use that's legal and prohibit it from the town limits. You have to make provisions for it where it may only be in one district, but it's allowed in the town. So we have to be really careful about the prohibited uses and where they would reside in the town limits.
Sure, it seems like the industrial district, dumping ground's the wrong word maybe, but the industrial district becomes the spot if it's where we have to allow this use somewhere. Not really excited about it. Let's just say it can go in industrial, and there's really not space in the industrial district for it, but it's okay. It's allowed there.
If we kind of disincentivize it to nobody wants a golf course in the industrial area. But, okay, well, just a thought.
Sure.
Meredith, the items that do not have a listing for, like you mentioned, dumping ground. So I looked for landfill, and it has nothing in any of the rows.
Okay.
As well as like
Salvage.
mining, fracking, and quarry operation. Mini warehouse storage. We do have a few of those in town. Like I see some of them are blank. Is this something you're looking for input as to where to put those, or?
Input, and also still working on it and looking for input and questions.
Mm-hmm. So is my understanding correct that when you look through our ordinances, you place the categories in the different districts based on what is currently in the ordinance, but perhaps also if it's not specified, you are placing it where it would normally go or where you recommend it to go? Is that correct?
Yes, all of the above, and plus we can be strategic. If there's something that you're really excited about, you want to make sure it has a home, we can, give it a few more options in different zoning districts. And again, if it's something that you want to, that you're not excited about, that's where we're like, okay, let's only allow that in industrial.
I see. Thank you. Some of these have asterisks on them, like Civic, for instance. What is the meaning of the asterisk?
It's probably a note that goes along with it to list some additional civic items. Civic is a big category. There are a lot of different things that would fall under that. That could be a government building, it could be police, fire, library.
Yeah, I would just be interested in seeing what that refers to. Like, yeah, I mean, I understand the purpose of an asterisk, but to see like what those refer to in terms of like, what does civic mean? What does the country club mean? Like, to have that be part of the table that we could look at would be really helpful.
Certainly, and then go along with the supplemental standards. For example, like with civic uses, we had one like parking should be located towards the interior of the lot, or front setback should preserve views of trees.
Anyone have anything else?
The wholesale nursery, I don't think needs to be in the R1.
Okay.
I think that I see it's also in industrial, but it needs to move to some business districts.
Okay.
I know that there is a specific agenda that we will be following until July 1st, but would it be useful for us to, after we have seen a semi-finished organization and format of this, if all of us went through that and just took a little bit of time, say after the April meeting or after the April meeting, if it's ready then, to determine if we think there are other areas that need to be in here that are not, would that be a good way to think about this and to prepare for it?
I think that's a great
Yeah.
idea.
Yeah, I think it's a little confusing right now because it's like we're looking at two different things, the format and then the ordinances. So
Mhm.
I think that's a good suggestion, Dawn, to kind of get it reorganized and then look through it at that point.
Yeah, I agree. I'd like to see, you kind of just get like a little slice of the action, what's going on in the stuff that was sent to us. I'd like to see more so that I could really sift through it.
Okay.
Would it be helpful to do that before the April meeting?
As in a separate meeting, or?
No, I was thinking look through the uses
Sure.
for the April meeting.
Like provide you all with an updated, a more complete table, maybe in two different formats, with the categories and then the different items alphabetized underneath.
Mhm.
Or, everything in one list. Then you can take a look and, say, ask questions about what's missing or see what you have.
I think one list might be easier to go through to
Okay.
begin with, and then we could break it out after that.
Okay.
That might make it easier for the flow of our meeting.
And like Melissa was saying, maybe a complementary list of the definitions or examples of each use category, so we can kind of think about what that might entail. Maybe get the use categories all ironed out first, and then look at the map, the zoning map with the different districts, so we can. I just need to kind of visualize these areas.
I agree with that. That's a good point.
That sounds like a good plan.
Paige, do you think that you could, without actually doing a whole meeting, you could just get that sent to us before the April meeting and give us a chance to look through it at that point?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, any other questions on this here?
This is not related, but is this everyone on the planning board? Are we missing anyone?
Yeah, we're missing one.
Jeffrey's not here, but I haven't heard
Oh.
from him.
Okay.
Okay, so if that's looking over the tables there. Now, we were also sent a couple of other things here, the use standards, Article 5. Is that something you wanted to go over with today, or?
That was to go along with the use table. Those are the supplemental standards that would go along with different uses. I think it might be better to take a closer look at that once we make edits to the use table.
Okay, sounds good then.
And can I just confirm that I got the whole thing, the option, well, I'm not sure which is which now, but one of them was 16 pages and the other one was 1 page. Is that correct? Did
Yes,
everybody-
that was correct.
Okay.
So with the option that had the 16 pages, it was saying, it was like, let's add a lot more supplemental standards.
Okay, anyone else, any questions, or Paige, do you have anything else?
I liked the option one that was modeled after Cornelius. I thought that would be easy for people to search and then go to the table.
I also thought both options, one made it a little clearer and defined things a little better. You know, kind of gave it, all right, oh, okay, we can do this and we can do that with the structure. You know, I think both of the options, the one in the table, you know, with a little more clarity, comparing that, you know, the columns on the left together, I brought it a little more clear and gave a clearer picture. And then definitely the additional supplemental use standards that showed up in the option one, I thought were, were easy enough to read for anybody, like Don was saying, that hadn't looked at the specs or standards or articles or anything in life, could read those and go, okay, that makes I understand the gist of that on the surface level.
Yes, the other thing I liked about it, as far as when we make amendments, we won't be having to amend so many different districts to be sure that we get the change made that we intended.
Good point.
Meaning you can just amend the supplemental standards for the specific use you're thinking about.
Yes.
Hmm.
We had an instance where we changed the setback in one district, and we should have also changed it in maybe R1 and R2. R3 let's say was an oversight. We missed it. So then we came back and did an amendment, and then we're like, okay, well, the professional business district mirrors the R1A. So we should have also done it there.
Mm. Is there any disadvantage to having the additional supplemental uses more spelled out like that? I mean, if they're less specific, then it would be more flexible, I suppose, but it would also be called upon for the board to be called in to assess uses more.
It makes it difficult on staff if there's no use spelled out. We have to back that use into what is closely related. So it becomes a staff determination at some point. It's in the ordinance. It's not really a planning board thing at that point. And that's more based on case law and what we've seen around the state. So the idea of this is to take that human element out of it and have it more spelled out. So staff across the board is more consistent with the determination and the consistency of the administration of the ordinance.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, as well as somebody coming in and thinking that they want to do something, you're like, well, I can't figure out if I can do this or not. I think with the more explanation, it would be more clear for somebody looking to do something within the town, like whether it would be allowed or not and in what circumstances. So I agree. I like the additional supplemental standards.
Meredith, does this give you enough of what you need from us tonight to move forward?
It does. This was very helpful. Definitely gives me a clear picture on what to do next and what to get ready to send to you all, so you can dive in a little deeper and we can have a more detailed discussion next time. So thank you.
Thank you, Meredith. And were there any final questions anyone else has? Okay, seeing none. That was our only other item of business there. So could I entertain a motion to adjourn?
So move.
And a second?
I'll second it.
And Amanda, if you'll do the roll call vote.
Dawn,
Yes.
Russ? Russ?
Yes.
He doesn't want to adjourn. He wants to stay.
Yes.
Rose?
Yes.
Boyd?
Yes.
Alan?
Yes.
Melissa?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you everyone for being here today. And thank you again, Melissa.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Thanks, Meredith.